We have received some unfortunate news about the Kirby Dach injury, a very bad update for the Montreal Canadiens, if it ends up being correct. Now, we're going to be going over this brutal injury, as well as the update that we have in this video. But before we get into it, we noticed that 96% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel. So if you're looking for a spot, get all your news around the NHL, so you don't miss out on any breaking news, you're in the right spot. Make sure to stay a while, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the major news. But like I said, we have a horrible injury update from Kirby Dach. Well, coming from Eric Engels via the Montreal Canadiens. An early word that is a torn ACL and a torn MCL in his knee. Horrible news, and absolutely terrible news. Not too common of an injury in the NHL, but we know how bad it is in other sports and the time it takes to recover, and it's a bad one. There are more tests being done, and we'll wait for the Habs to officially confirm once they receive all the info, but this puts Dach's season at risk if it ends up being the case. And yeah, that is absolutely correct. If it does end up being the case, I would say he's done for the year, and probably a bit of next season as well. But Nick, you're a Montreal fan, so what do you think about this news? Kirby Dach looked super exciting to see him play this year, getting excited after missing a lot of last season as well, but what do you think?
I don't know what we did to deserve this, man. This is just brutal. It's just very disheartening. Right when you think the team is stepping in the right direction, they fired all the medical staff after last season. They gained a new staff on that. You thought maybe the injuries won't be so bad because, we set records the last 2 seasons for man games lost due to injury. And that was without even Shea Weber last season. We traded him before last season. So we didn't even have his man game loss to count. But it's just disheartening when you think the team is moving forward and it's like, oh, Slafkovsky, Newhook, Dach. It's going to be a breakout year for Newhook, going to be a step in the right direction, really big step forward for Dach, a nice step for Slafkovsky. And I mean, Slafkovsky said it earlier with that interview. It really sucks, but right when you think it's turning in the right direction, it turns right around on you, and it's just it's a bad play. It's not Jarred Tinordi's fault. It's a hockey play. It happens. You get hit. You see people going to the bench. I mean, it's not too often, but almost once a night you'll see a guy going to the bench maybe, right? It just happens, and usually it doesn't happen like this with this outcome, but it's just wrong place, wrong time, like Engels said. It's really bad for us right now.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's nobody's fault. It's just an unfortunate way. He almost kind of slid across the top of the bench rather than just go straight in. Just a weird play as a whole. Nobody's fault, but it is very unfortunate. This happens to be, an unfortunate trend for Kirby Dach as well. He's never played a full season in the NHL, as well as the year he was the captain of the Canadian World Junior team. I think it was his wrist that he broke off Slash, so it is. It's really tough for Kirby Dach, and I'm sure he was excited for this year, this team being rebuilt, getting a new group of guys coming in, and they were looking good in the first 2 games, especially Kirby Dach on that line with Newhook and Slafkovsky. But now we won't probably see that if this does come out to be the actual case in the injuries. But Montreal will have a lot of thinking to do if they do remain what they are right now. No trades or nothing based on this Kirby Dach injury. Here's what Daily Faceoff has the lines as right now. They have Caulfield, Suzuki, and Harvey Pinard, Slafkovsky, Newhook, and moving Anderson down from that first line to the second line to fill in for Kirby Dach's spot. Tanner Pearson, Sean Monahan, Brendan Gallagher, Jesse Alonen, Jake Evans, and Michael Pezzetta. Not too much of the change in the bottom 6, but Josh Anderson being moved down to that second line. Nick, tell me what you think about that in replace of Kirby Dach, because we know how much that line was rolling. They were doing fantastic. So what do you think about a replacement of Josh Anderson for Kirby Dach here?
I don't like the Josh Anderson replacement. I think Anderson should be on a line down in the bottom 6 somewhere. I've said, he doesn't really work with Suzuki and Caulfield. I don't think he'll work with Newhook and Slafkovsky either. I just don't think he has the skill to keep up with that line. Someone that's been playing really good, though, as a suggestion, maybe Sean Monahan can move to center and Newhook can play the right wing. Newhook or Slafkovsky can play either side. They have been during the preseason and a little bit of camp. I know that they've been either of them has been playing. Well, Newhook can play all 3 positions, I guess, but Slafkovsky's been playing left and right wing. So you can put Monahan up with them. Monahan's got really good playmaking skills. He's a former 30-goal scorer. And that's another guy. He needs to stay healthy because Montreal is going to get a call for him at the deadline if he stays healthy. He had a shorthanded goal last game. He can kill the penalties. He knows how to play on offense. He can play with 2 talented young players because he once was a talented young player in the league that scored 30 goals and so on, right? I just don't think Josh Anderson works as well as Sean Monahan would on that line. But I mean, you're going to have to be open to all the possibilities because this is about as bad as it can get for that line right now. That was going to be our first line, in my opinion, towards the end of the season if they kept playing the way they were. No offense to Suzuki and Caulfield, they're obviously our best players, but they didn't exactly have somebody to put with those guys right now to make that a dominant line like it used to be when they had Tyler Toffoli and things like that. But I think that you're going to have to be open to almost everything. So I wouldn't cancel that out yet.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Especially having Newhook with, like, as what the broadcast call him, a Swiss Army knife. You can use him anywhere. He's good at everything. That's something valuable that you can have on that line. And you're right about Sean Monahan. A lot of people think he's really old, me included. I thought he was mid-30s, but he's only, 29? Something around that. So that's obviously a player that you maybe get a bit more production out of while you have him. Maybe even get a few more points to raise that trade value up a bit. But there's also one man who's been in the news lately regarding a trade coming from the Pacific Division. That's Connor Garland. Connor Garland's been drawing a lot of interest, and this comes from Elliot Friedman. He said in the intermission a couple of nights ago, Nashville and Winnipeg are interested in Connor Garland, amongst other teams. Vancouver would like a D-man in return, but we're not going to focus on the D-man too much, but the other teams. Today David Pagnotta also said Chicago was involved. I think he said Seattle. There's a few teams that could possibly be interested in Connor Garland. And Nick, now, what do you think about, with the absence of Kirby Dach, the Montreal Canadiens trying to get a guy like Connor Garland, someone who's not young, has had that experience before, can put up points. He was almost a half point per game. He had 46 and 81 last year, with 3 years left at $4.95 million. But what do you think about a guy like Connor Garland filling in that gap that they would have in that position, and also a leader role?
To me, when you want to have Slafkovsky in the NHL, like you had him in the NHL last season, and you have Newhook there now, you cannot risk stunting their growth when they got off to such a good start. This really might be an issue for Montreal, a lot more than people might think, for those two guys, because it was a really hard time for Newhook fitting in Colorado, and it was a really hard time for Slafkovsky trying to find line mates last season. Now that he finally had them, one of them's gone already, and that might fool up the whole chemistry. So you're going to have to try to get somebody. Like, if Connor Garland is that guy, by all means. He's a talented player. He's got a good shot. He's not the best, but Connor Garland is definitely better than Josh Anderson, in my opinion, for that line. He can probably keep up with them a lot more. Definitely has a little bit better offensive awareness than Josh Anderson, but I wouldn't mind that at all. And this also, I wanted to point out, could be the point where Montreal uses the left side defense depth that they have to their advantage. Because, they've got Gooley, they've got Jack Guy, they've got Harris, they've got Matheson. And some of those guys, they're playing the right side. But you've got Justin Barron down in the AHL. You've got guys and realistically, you could bring someone up from the AHL and use him as a seventh defenseman like Justin Barron right now. William Trudeau, I know that he was not supposed to make the team, but he had a really good camp, and the Montreal Canadiens liked what he was doing. So I think Montreal should use one of their – I'm not saying who, because I don't really know how I would feel about trading one of those young guys yet. But if they were going to use it to their advantage, now might be the time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, I want to say, luckily, now not because of the injury, but luckily they're only 2 games into the season. So the chemistry hasn't fully developed yet between that line like it would have. So I think a change wouldn't hinder the production too much. But, still, that line seemed to be going, so they had some chemistry there regardless. Well, obviously, we had Newhook and Kirby Dach on that World Junior team for, the one game in the preseason that Kirby Dach played or whatever. But nonetheless, they were there together, they bonded together, so that was probably part of that as well. But, luckily, Montreal hasn't gotten too far into the season where this was their top line. This is the line they depended on. So hopefully they can make a change here that don't hinder the production too much of Slafkovsky and Newhook, as well as the development. That's the big part of this line, I think. They're not really looking for major production. The team's not going to be a Stanley Cup winning team. It's not going to be a playoff team, but that's the important part.
This was the year that we thought we were going to get through those growing pains. We were going to develop that chemistry. And now that Kirby Dach, one of our most talented players, and a lot of people in Montreal think he's a future 1C for us. I know Suzuki is there, but Kirby Dach is a great talent. And now that you're missing that talent, you're not going to replace him. You just got to get through it for the season and try to get Newhook and Slafkovsky as much minutes in the top 6 as you can and find them another line mate and quick.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, I mean, that's what we have right now. There's no other update yet. Montreal hasn't released anything themselves. That's just been Eric Engels from what he's heard. But, when the word's coming like that, it kind of seems right. You hope it's not. Really hope it's not. We hope Kirby Dach's okay. Hopefully he'll have a quick recovery, a nice quick comeback, be fine afterwards. Because some ACLs you can feel them after the repair and everything. So it's a tough situation, but hopefully Kirby Dach does get better. But that's all we have for this video. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss any more news. But that's all we have. Thank you for watching. See you later.